Hi, and welcome to Art Laughs with me, Verity Babs. Today, I spoke to Sam Lake. Well, I'm here with Sam Lake. Sam, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Sam, and I'm a comedian slash podcaster slash whatever you want, really.
You have picked a piece for us today. Could you give us an intro to
I really can. So
that?
the piece I chose, I'm really sorry if I pronounce it wrong. I've written it down. It's called Yumeno Tomonura. It's a picture of a part of Japan that is in the Hiroshima region. And it's by a guy called Tatsuo Horiuchi. And the reason I chose this painting is because I find it cool because it was made entirely in Microsoft Excel.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I can't believe that. I saw it and I was like, it's cool. Like, obviously, digital art. So it's not, I
Yeah.
could work out that it wasn't done in kind of oils or, no way. That's so
Yeah.
brilliant.
I just find it fascinating because I love a good spreadsheet. I have a few recreational spreadsheets myself. Um and I just wondered, the thing is with me and art, maybe this is a bad podcast or show to say this on, but I don't like it. I I like things that look nice, but sometimes I find art just a bit too inaccessible for me. And
Mm.
the reason I chose this is because I think that's the attitude of the guy who made it as well. Like, he's a guy who just really likes Microsoft Excel and has been working out what you can do with it for like the last 20 years. So for the last 20 years he's been making like all of these different like landscapes and paintings all in Excel, using like weird tricks and stuff that like the average spreadsheeter wouldn't probably be using. But even he says stuff like, oh yeah, like if you're not good at art, you can always just like draw stuff in Microsoft Excel. Or, I'm really stupid for doing this, but I enjoy doing it, so I guess that's fine. I just think he's quite interesting. He's not like a he. I don't think he considers himself an artist. He just, I think he likes the practice of doing this stuff in Excel, and that's all. He doesn't like do exhibitions or stuff. He asks people to buy his paintings, but yeah, he just really loves Excel.
That's so brilliant. It's interesting hearing about this idea of sort of, he wouldn't consider himself an artist, but he does make beautiful things. Of
Yeah,
this idea that someone can do art kind of properly, because a lot of the big hitters of contemporary art on a fundamental level do not do good drawings. Tracy Emin, that's not what a person looks like. Or, I think Damien Hirst said when he won the Turner Prize, it's amazing what you can do with an E at A-level art, a twisted imagination, and a chainsaw. So, like, these people aren't doing kind of, Renaissance level
no,
figurative stuff. I'm not sure. I always viewed that kind of contemporary art where it's not very formal and very structured to be a bit more accessible. But some people find that even more jarring because there's a lot of jargon and stuff. What's your
yeah.
take on it?
I think I think the reason this is accessible to me is because it's very logical. Like, he takes a thing that he can see in real life and then he just tries to recreate it in Excel. And I think unintentionally for him, he makes things that are really impressive, but also very beautiful, like he said. And I think if I think about when I had to do art in school,
Mm.
I was the kind of student who wanted to do well at everything
Yeah.
except PE, because that doesn't count.
Yeah.
But art and English, they're such subjective things. And so it's really hard to see the path to the the correct answer, because there isn't one
Yeah.
necessarily. It's all subjective, and it's totally down to the opinion and the taste of the person who's judging it. And so I always found those subjects the hardest. Now, I say that now that I'm a comedian and I have to do writing and stuff, which is a creative pursuit, but it's within the context of things that I want to write about, which
Mm.
then turns it into something accessible because it's fun to write about things that you are passionate about and you know about. And I guess for him, maybe it's more just like an exercise in replication. I've heard I think it was Darren Brown, actually, like the mentalist, who he does a thing on stage where he like draws a celebrity in like a black and white chalk thing, and when it's done like in a big trick, like a big reveal, and
Yeah,
everyone
it's
goes,
flipped
"Oh my,
upside down, right?
yeah,"
Yeah.
and everyone goes like, "Oh my god, it was Princess Diana the whole time," or whoever it was, and he goes like, "It's really not that hard. Like, you just have to be able to like see the difference between those two colors and see where all of the shapes are, and then you just replicate it with your hand." And he goes like, "I don't get why some people can't do that, but it is a skill." But yeah, I think maybe creating the art for some people is just like a very like in and out process, like a black box. Like, you take a thing, turn it into this thing, and you don't really question the process that happens in the middle.
Yeah, I guess so. With this artist, you have that structure at least. But thinking back to, secondary school English classes and things like that, where you might be given the task of write a story,
Yeah.
and kind of creative kids in the class could be like, right, I'm going to run with something, and you just have to kind of run with anything. But I think that's where so many kids would like shut off, because
Yeah.
you can't get that first bit out and run with it. So at least there is some structure here. I think the structurelessness of, I think art classes were a lot pleasanter when it was, here's an apple, I would like you to draw it, versus when it
Yeah.
gets to your GCSE and it's like, your theme is the wilderness, and what are you going to do with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Sometimes it's so broad that a topic, they're like, I don't even know where to start, and that makes me not want to start.
Yeah.
I think the only time I did well in art was when I drew my laundry basket in the corner of my room. Oh, and I did a very good picture of the Guggenheim Museum in
Ah,
Bilbao. Yeah.
that
My
was,
mum
I got
helped.
so
Yeah.
used to kind of comedy inflection that I was completely expecting that to be a really long kind of anecdote about this laundry basket, and I wait, and I just sat there like,
No,
oh, that's that.
I just drew it and that's it. I didn't want to say any more about it.
Thinking about the kind of broadness of themes, doing, in your comedy, which is sort of anecdotal in terms of, you're not a kind of a one-liner or anything like that. At least you have that structure of your own life to bounce things off, even if some of those things are fallacies.
I suppose so. I guess I don't know what your I don't know what it's like for you with comedy, but when I think of things to like try out on stage, I don't know if I don't do so well with sitting down and having like an ideation session where I think about things that I want to write about. It's very much like I'll go to bed, and then just before I fall asleep, I'll think of something and write it down. So that's why we always have notebooks with us, because you never know when the inspiration will strike. But the process of coming up with the thing that you want to be creative about, I don't really question. It just kind of happens, and I just sort of let it happen whenever it happens. Most of the time it's like stuff that like leads to nowhere. I thought I had a really good idea the other night there, and then I went to my notebook the next day to check what I had written because I'd forgotten about it, and it said Constance Wu makes a lasagna but she's not happy about it. And I know when I thought of the idea that was going to be hilarious, but I could not tell you what the proper punchline for that setup is now. But yeah, I think when you just sort of let an idea take you, and but that's like the broadest thing possible, because it literally could be anything. But it's weird thinking of it now, of like, if you ask me to like write a joke about, I don't know, stationery, let's say, I would just be like, oh god, I don't know where, I don't have a black box where I can take the topic of stationery, put it through the black box, and it comes out with jokes about stationery.
That's why I'm always absolutely amazed at people who can write, I don't know, either one-liners or people who do sketches, because this thing of, at least with stand-up, where even if it is, largely made up, or at least is bouncing off something biographical, or you haven't put the pressure on yourself to write, I must write about topic A, at least if it can come to you quite naturally. But
Yeah.
seeing people at uni kind of sit down and go, right, do you know what? I think we should write a sketch about people in an office. What's funny about an office? And I just can absolutely marvel at people who are
Yeah.
able to think of funny circumstances. I always just kind of relied on surreal non-jokes, so actually the awkward laughter or people being uncomfortable covered up
Yeah.
for actually not being able to write jokes at all.
but to another comedian, they'll be like, oh, I wish I could do the surreal stuff. I think we all look at each other and go, oh, I wish I was able to do that type of comedy, or I wish I could write that type of joke or tell that type of story. And maybe not enough time just going like, oh, this is the thing that comes to me quite naturally. Maybe I should just take that and run with it. But I agree with you about like sketches, because I've tried to write sketches more lately because it's a good skill to have, especially right now where you can't go on a stage. But I find coming up with the idea for this sketch the hardest bit. And once I have an idea that I think, yeah, okay, I could see that unfold in a funny way, then actually writing the sketch isn't so bad. Because the thing that comes more naturally to me are the gags that go in the sketch, rather than like a thing that has a narrative, a start, a middle, and an end. But so once I've got the idea, but I have no control over how to get the idea. It will just happen, and often it won't happen when I need it to.
I'm still haunted to this day. I must have been about 13, and in a morning, in your tutor group in secondary school, and they decided that in order, like, they pair everyone up, and as a writing exercise, it were put in pairs and told to kind of write, a short dialogue of a funny story, and that's all they gave us. And I remember being sat with this bloke in my tutorial group going, I've pinned so much of my personality on being funny that this is where it all crumbles down.
A real test.
I know, and I think we wrote something about someone going to one of those places where you buy tires. But that was all in the moment. In the moment, I panicked. I was like, "This is all I have."
But also trying to like be funny with somebody who you don't know in that way, that's damn near impossible. I think I always envy the people who are like super good professional writers who can jump into any writer's room and just get going with start thinking of stuff right away. It would take me a long time to get over the fear of my ideas not being funny. Like I would just go in thinking, oh, I want everything that comes out of my mouth to be funny, because if it's not funny, then like, why am I here? I'm not doing my job right. But I think those people would also tell you that coming up with really bad ideas is just as much a part of the process as when you get the gold.
I think that's what a lot of people, I guess, don't necessarily know about in terms of comedy careers, about how much crafting there is before you go and do the set that wins you the newcomer award and things like that, where people come up to you at parties and say things like, oh, tell us a joke, and they don't get that actually it's a lot of going home and honing, and like with this guy with Excel, right, there is a structure.
Yeah absolutely. There's a lot of failure. There's a lot of failure involved with being a creative of any kind. And I think it's just about having that freedom to fail. And a lot of the time failing really hard and in front of lots of people. So
public failure. It's never in private. That's the nature of comedy. It's public failure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we got to see you fail before we'll let you succeed.
And actually hearing you speak about kind of going into these situations and being like, oh, I really want this to be funny, and this anxiety of it not working. Do you think that is something that will pass with time? Do you think all comedians start off like a bit worried about it and then they stop caring, or do you think that that's something that is kind of in your woven DNA?
That's a good question. I think it's absolutely like a kill your darlings thing, where you have to. I think you will come up with ideas or you'll come up with jokes and things that you're like, oh, I can't wait to tell this because I know it's absolutely going to bring down the house. And then you'll tell it, and people will be like, I don't know who Constance Wu is, and I'm not a biggest fan of lasagna, so I'm not going to laugh at that. And so you'll go home and be like, I really thought that was going to work.
Mm.
And I think when you start doing comedy and you have that the first couple of times, it's really hard to get over. And then after a while of doing it and trying more and more new things, that time between it failing and you trying the next new thing gets shorter and shorter and shorter, to the point where, you know, you could go to a new material night, do a joke that doesn't work, and then just like go, oh well, that one worked in my head, next one, and it just sort of like be water off a duck's back. I think that's what happens. You always still care just as much about the success of the joke, but if it doesn't get the payoff that you hoped for, then you just roll with it and you go, okay, next thing, move on to the next thing.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for having this little chat with me. Could you let us know where the best place is to follow you, and also please plug your podcast?
Oh, okay. Well, if you don't want to follow me in public, that would be great. If you could follow me on social media, I am Mr. Sam Lake on everything, but Mr. Sam Lake is spelled MrSamLake, because sometimes people think it's Mr. the full word. And then even when it's spelled correctly, some people think it's Mrs. Amlarkey or something like that. My podcast, thank you for mentioning it, is called I've Had a Rosé, Let's Talk About Feelings, where I interview different funny people about their relationship with their emotions and their feelings and what they use to access them. So for me, it's a glass of rosé that gets me in the right mood to like have any kind of emotional based chat. And it's just like a fun podcast where you learn about how comedians deal with their emotions.
You can follow Sam in the ways written below, and as per usual, you can follow me at VerityBabsArt on Instagram. Please do give us a subscribe and a share, and I will see you next time.